For the page layout options exercise, download the folder that has all of the different files related to this project. When you open up the folder, the first thing to have a look at will be the book layout PDF. Within this PDF, it gives you a copy of the lecture that we went over for this class. And inside it, it'll detail the different parts of a page, and it'll give you a variety of different examples of how you can lay out the design for your book. The main ones we're going to focus on today will be the body copy, the headers and runners, and also the chapter headings for your book. So have a look at these just to get different ideas before we jump into the project. Once you're ready to go, locate the Page Layout InDesign file. Notice I'm giving you an older version in case you can't open that one, but I'm going to open up the InDesign file. And inside of this InDesign file, when you open your Pages panel, notice that there's 20 pages to it. What I've done is I've given you 5 different 4-page options, and you can tell the beginning of each option by the title of option and the number. So in this case, option 1 has 4-page spread to it. Then it starts over with option 2, 4 pages, option 3, so on and so forth, until you get to your 5th option. What we want to do is to create 5 different layouts that give us options for the margins, the body copy, and the formatting of a chapter title, and also the headers and footers for your pages. The last thing to notice is on the left-hand side of the first pages, there's a little area for notes. And within this notes area, you can keep track of what font you're using, the size and leading, any first line indents and margins, and any other notes that you want to take that tells you what the body copy and formatting will be for this. This is going to be critical when you start the layout of your own book because then you can copy this design into the overall pages of your layout. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is to format the margins of our page. I'm going to go into my Pages panel, and for now I'm just going to work through option 1 and select all of the pages associated with option 1. So this 4-page spread, pages 1 through 4 are selected. We can go up to Layout and open your Margins and Guides. And within the Margins and Guides, this will allow us to change up the page margins. Make sure Preview is turned on so you kind of get an idea of what it looks like. And I'm going to uncheck Linked to make sure that's they're not all the same. This will allow me to give different margin settings for the top, bottom, inside, and outside. From here, it's a simple matter of playing around to see what the book page looks like to fit your content. And you may have to go back and forth, but it's okay. We'll set it to one setting for now. In general, you'll want to have a thicker inside margin, so I'm going to set that to be about a 3/4 of an inch. As far as the outside margin goes, maybe I'll make it a little bit thinner as well. And I'm going to add a little bit more room to the bottom of my page and give it a whole inch. Remember, you're going to do this for all the other pages, so this doesn't have to remain the same. But we'll say OK. Once the margins are done, go through each of the pages and readjust the text boxes to fit. In my case, since I adjusted the bottom edges, all I have to do is this one for this one. And we also did it for page 3 and 4. The other options pages should remain unaffected since we only selected pages 1, 2, 3, and 4. Finally, whenever you're working on this, it's okay to have overset text. All of this is just dummy text, so we want to give it a basic idea, and so if it overflows, that's okay. Now I can go back, swap into preview mode, and this will give me an idea of how much space that I have along each of my edges, especially if I back out and look at the whole 2-page spread. The next thing we want to work through is our body copy. Grab your type tool and select all of the body copy you can on the first options page. Now there's a lot of different options you can play around with for body copy, but in general we want to choose a font and a leading and a size that's very, very readable. And this is the kind of thing that each of the options will show you how the readability can be affected. For now, I'm going to check out some of the font options that we have. In my case, a serifed font tends to be very readable for body copy. So those are the kinds of fonts that I'll want to stay with and choose from. I'll choose Baskerville. That looks like that for there. As far as the size of it goes, right now I've got it set to 12 point. Let's do 13 point, and I'll increase the leading just a little bit. Backing up, you can see this is how this readability is affected. We can see it on a full 2-page spread without a chapter title. Oops. Let's go into preview mode. You can see how it looks like this. If you like this but want to just see what the different sizes would do, maybe that's what you'll do on the next option. The other thing I'll do, let's go back and reselect all of this, is to add some first line indent. I've grabbed my type tool. First line indent, if you don't see it, is this option, and we'll increase it to add a little indentation at the first option of our paragraphs. Okay, I like the way that that is laid out. Some other things you can play around with would be your alignment. Naturally, since we read left to right, we either want to keep it left aligned or left justified aligned. And so both of those could be proper options to use. The next thing we want to play around with are our chapter headings. I'm going to let option 1 be the heading for my chapter. Of course, when you jump into your book, yours will have names to it or full chapter layouts. But choosing my type tool, I'll go up and highlight chapter 1, or option 1. As with our body copy, we can change up the font. Now the font for your chapter titles can be a little bit more whimsical. It doesn't have to be so strict to a serif type. So feel free to choose something that's appropriate for the style of your book. If you were doing Jane Eyre, you could do more of a scripted type. Make sure you got a font that has numbers to it. We'll do option uno. Or if you're doing something like War of the Worlds, you may want to do something a little bit more techno. I think that's a little bit too much right there. So let's try a different font. The other thing you can do is you can completely retype it. There we go. And let's play around with some of the spacing and alignment for this. Your chapter titles don't have to be centered, so they could either be to the left or to the right. Kind of like it off to the left. Maybe we'll give it a little first line indent. And I don't want my chapters to start at the top of my text. I want to have a little bit of a space. Here's a good habit to get into. Rather than hitting a series of returns like this, I'll go back. I'm going to hit one return, giving myself some space. Then I'm going to highlight my text, and I'm going to use space after. After you highlight the text, go up to the paragraph section, and just as we can add a little bit of space for our indents, these options allow us to add space before and space after our return. So with that selected, I can add a little bit of space between my title and my body copy, or I can add a little space before it and push it on down the page. This is much better to work with than adding a series of returns, because then you only have to set one paragraph style once you're finished. So if I like that, maybe I can even highlight the character, and instead of it being 100% black, let's drop it down to like 70%. So there's one option style for my heading. If you look at some of the examples, some other things you can add would be images. You can completely take it out and put it in its own text box and do some special fancy effects to it. With the chapter title done, let's also look at the first paragraph within our story. I'll select it. It doesn't have to be the same as all the other paragraphs. I've seen some people add more first line indent to where it's all the way to the center of the page. And then maybe they'll highlight just that one text, and they'll either do a drop cap or an uppercase cap. So I could take that one and make it larger. So there's the start of that one. Or if I wanted to drop cap, let's put this back down to 13 point. I could highlight that first word or first set, Drop caps are found, again, back under the paragraph options. These styles right here. This is the number of characters it will go down, and this is the number of characters deep it will go. So watch this. As I increase this number, 1, 2, 3, you can see how many lines down it'll go. And if I increase this number, you can see how many characters will be affected. I just want to do the 1. Whoops, there we go. And let's do it a couple of lines deep. That's looking pretty good. We'll even pull it back over. I'll have it aligned up right with the title once it's done. So there we have some options for our page layout and chapter titles. The final thing we want to do is to add our runners, and these are your headers or your footers. This type of information tells me what page I'm on, who the author is, and also what the book title is. And with all of these, you can change it up and give a variety of different options and styles. For the most part, let's grab our type tool. I'm going to click and drag below. Now, page numbers, I can either add to the outer edges, I could center them up and have them right there. I could have a page number on the left-hand side, but you never want to have a page number on the inner side of a page next to the fold of the book. So make sure your layout is always mirrored to one way or the other. We'll put that, let's do it off to this side. So maybe I'll do a 1 and then a dash, and then I'll do Jane Eyre. We'll highlight that. Again, choose a font. In my case, let's try it as italic. I think that looks pretty good. And then we'll make the size of it slightly smaller. Simple as that is all that's needed. However, on the other page, we'll copy these over. I don't want anything on the inside pages, so let's move it over to the right-hand side. This will be page 2. Charlotte Bronte. We'll add that one. We swap back into preview mode. You can see how these two look. Maybe I want to move my lines down just a bit. Notice that my folios or my runners are outside of my margin edges. We only want the body copy to stay inside of our pink margins. Add a little bit more space between those two. That looks pretty good. And the last thing we'll do is to select these, copy them, move over to pages 3 and 4. If you go to Edit, Paste in Place, this will paste them in the exact same spot as the other one. All we have to do is to change up the page numbers. Some other placements you can do for your folios or your runners is to have them at the top of your page. So don't think that they have to be at the bottom. You can always have some space at the top. If you do put information at the top, I would suggest having some thicker margins when you do that. So this is one option that I have for laying out this page. What I want you to do is to spend some time playing around with the other options. Take option 2, 3, 4, and 5. Highlight the text, the body copy, play around with the margins, play around with the layout of your book. And when you're done, we're going to print these off and then trim them down. And when you lay them side by side, we'll be able to quickly and easily see what's most readable. So once you're finished, we definitely want to save this up. We can go to File and Print. Since I don't have a printer selected, that's okay. But the main thing to look for printing will be a tabloid size paper. So the size of it will be set to tabloid. That'll be under Setup, but since I don't have a printer set up, that's okay. Under General, however, we want to print spreads. We want to print the pages side by side. And also under Marks and Bleeds, we'll turn on our crop marks so that it will we can know where to crop off our pages. Once we're done with this, we'll hit print, send it to the printer. When you print them off, crop them down, and then lay them out side by side for review.